Hi everyone, this is Ben Colby, Teen Librarian Enoch Pratt, with a Level 1 video for creating a phone stand. Here I am in Tinkercad, and I pulled these three files from Thingiverse. These are three of the most popular phone stands. And let's just take a look at some of the common features of these. They all have this little dip with something that kind of curls back. And they have that surface here to lean the phone against. Other than that, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And so believe it or not, even just this little tentacle shape is enough to hold the phone. You would be welcome to remix a file like this. And if you're in the live meeting with me, then I'm sharing these three files with you if you want to use them. You can also load them into your design and just use them as a reference point for whatever you're creating, just to make sure that you are creating something that's the right size. So, and you would do that by going to import and importing the STL file. I am going to focus on this big design for today. And let's just see if we can make a replica of this from scratch. I'm going to take this roof shape and let's just make it a little bigger and taller and wider until it's about the same, maybe a little smaller. Maybe I want to make mine not quite so tall. And I'm going to make it about as wide. So this ended up being 66 by 66 by 97. Great. So I'm going to rotate this now 90 degrees, and I'm going to hit the D key to get it back on the surface. And the only thing I don't love about this shape is the pokey corners. I don't want to have anything with pokey corners in my living space. So I'm going to take another shape just to round off the top. And so I'm taking this round roof, I have to get a better angle, 90-degree turn, D to get it back on the surface, lift it up. I'm just going to stretch this down until it overlaps and kind of center it. So now I have a rounded edge so it's not going to poke anybody. Let me just lift it up slightly higher so it matches. Great. And so this is the outer shape of my stand. I'm going to group these two shapes together, and now they take the same color. Now I'm going to make a copy of this, Alt-Drag. You can also use Control-D or the duplicate button. You can also use copy and paste or Control-C, Control-V. Anyway, I got my copy, and I'm making it a little smaller, holding the Shift key to avoid warping it. Or if you don't have a Shift key, just do your best to avoid changing the shape too much. I'm going to stretch it up. I'm going to change it into a hole, and I'm going to try to realign it in the center. And you could just eyeball it and try to do your best. Here's an advanced trick. If I highlight both of these shapes together, I have this align button up here, which is also the L key. And I have different ways I can line up these shapes, but if I click in the ones in the middle for the X and Y, now I have completely, at least it's telling me that it's perfectly centered. I still don't love that though, and I'm going to just lower it down a little bit. Awesome. So when I group these, it should be a cutout. Awesome. So I have a nice little frame that I'm using. Now, what I'm missing is the little scoop to hold the phone. So how do we do that? Let's just keep it real simple and use boxes. I'm going to use the F key to zoom in. Oh, that's a little too far, isn't it? Let me just stretch this up right away until it's kind of up on the side. Cool, and then I'm going to rotate it until the angle basically matches the rest. Actually, since that bumps out a little bit, I want to rotate that up just slightly more. That's great. And I don't want it to be quite so high. And actually, you know what? I made a mistake here because if you're going to change the size, you want to do that before you rotate. So I just hit undo a couple of times. And actually, I better do this part too. So I'm going to copy, or well, let's say Control D, duplicate this copy. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees from there. And I'm going to shrink it because it's just the little nub on the end. And then overlap it. It's fine if it's not perfect. Great, so now I have these, oops, I just selected 3 shapes. I only want to select these 2 red shapes, group them, and then rotate them together. That's probably the best way to do it. So it's this L shape that's rotating. And I just want to kind of match that angle up with what's already there. Oh, and you know what? Not matching it up exactly with what's already there. Leaving it tipped, like I said. I can even lower that down. Okay. So anyway, once you have it the way you like it, group that. This looks fantastic. And I'm just going to do one more thing. I'm going to cut a hole out for the wires if you want to put a charger on there. So let's tip that back up 90 degrees. I can see that I made this just a little bit smaller, the gap here. And just maybe to fix that, what I'm going to do is just make the whole thing just a little bit bigger. Just to make sure there's enough room for the bottom of the phone. Anyway, all right. So we're cutting a hole out. I'm going to take this box shape, or you know what? Not a box shape. Let's try a cylinder shape. I'm going to zoom in and tilt it 90 degrees. I'm going to use the black cone to lift it off the ground. And if I get a good angle on the side, I can kind of center it where I want it. Sometimes you really need to find a good angle before that works. I'm just going to stretch it out a little more. And actually, let's move this over so the other stuff isn't in the way. And just, you can, anytime you're adding a hole to something, you can always just stretch it beyond the shape that it's cutting out of. I'm just going to roughly center that. Actually, let's use that align tool again. I'm going to select these 2 shapes, align, and right here would center it. Okay, I like that. I'm just going to lower that so that the thing joins at the top just barely. Great. Joining these 2 shapes. And cool, I've got a neat little cutout. It should print great. It should print great, I should qualify that, if it's tilted on its side. So I'm going to move it back down 90 degrees and hit D one more time to get it on the surface. And this will print wonderful. And so to download this, if I have other stuff in the workspace, I can just leave it there. I don't have to get rid of it. I can export and say include just the selected shape in the STL. And so now I've just downloaded my file and I have a functional phone stand. In the level 2 video, if you want to try that, we're going to try something completely different.